Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Check one. Check two. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. So, today is the day that this camera is finally announced. This is the Lumix S9. I've got it here in my hands. I've been very, very grateful, super blessed to be a part of the crew that got invited to Tokyo to check this thing out. Okay, I'm gonna blast this live stream out and just see what happens here. But yeah, I'm just gonna wait and see what is going on. Ask me anything. Anything you want. Anything at all. Check one. Hello, everybody. So yeah, Lumix S9. I've been a fan of this thing for the last couple days, but when I first got it, I did not like it. It was kind of a strange camera to me. But it's kind of grown on me the more I've used it and the more I've spent time with it. This here is the Lumix S5 II, and you can really see the difference here. I mean, it's so much smaller. It's crazy. Um, so yeah, so whoever's here, whoever's listening, whoever's a part of this, please ask me any questions you want about the Lumix S9. I'm just gonna kind of blast this out on the socials for a minute, and I'll talk to you in a second. But yeah, get your questions ready, ask in the chat, and I will respond. Okay. Yeah, so hello. Here we are. S9, full frame camera. Nice, chunky, full frame sensor, but nice, small, compact camera body. So yeah, so this thing is basically an S5 II with a couple limitations. It's obviously smaller. It doesn't have a full frame HDMI port, and it's missing some features like continuous recording. It doesn't have any type of ProRes. You can't charge it over USB-C while you're filming. You can charge it later, but other than that, like it's got everything the S5 II has, the S5 IIX even, with the exception again of the ProRes and all that. The button layout is pretty simple, pretty minimal. You've got, a little dial here for your aperture or, shutter if you want. You do have a nice clicky dial here on the top, which is great. But the buttons do feel a little plasticky, a little cheap. And then I'd say one of the biggest, like strangest decisions here was the lack of a proper flash sync. And what do I mean by that? Like if you look at pretty much any camera in the hot shoe, you can see those little circles there underneath the hot shoe. It's called a hot shoe because there's actually electronics there and that can, talks to a flash. That way you can use a flash. Well, you can't use a flash on this camera. It's called a cold shoe, which means there's no heat on it. There's no there's no electronics going to that at all. So that is strange to me. But again, if we're looking at like side by side, what these things look like, I mean, it is quite amazing how teeny tiny the S9 is compared to the S5 II. Now, you're missing the EVF, obviously. I'm a huge fan of EVFs, and I believe this camera would have been so much better if it had one. Heck, I'd even, maybe even pay a little bit more money, though I actually think this camera is a little pricey for what it is. It's got a cheap, unweather sealed body, very plasticky. These colorways, it comes in red, green, blue, and black. Um, are just stickers. Like, this is literally, it feels like a D brand skin. It might look kind of like a leather skin or something, but uh, over time, this may not wear well. These might come up. But then again, it might be pretty easy to replace them yourself. I don't see why like D brand or companies like it couldn't make their own versions of this. Here's just a little square, there's just this little area here and this little area here. It's literally just like a skin. It's might be hard to see or understand because you're just used to cameras being like proper leather wrapped, like this is really kind of ingrained into the body here. This is not, I mean, sometimes over time these types of materials will come up, but yeah, this guy is just a skin. So would be easy to replace that yourself if it did come up. And if you get bored of whatever color you purchased initially, maybe again, if a third party uh, was interested, they can make little color changing things. So yeah, I see 5 people here. Hello, welcome. This is my Gear Guy channel. I've changed the name a couple times, but this is what I've decided to do for now. Just call this the Gear Guy channel because I have another channel where it's all like thumbnail stuff, which is what I'm doing currently full time. Um, this is something I want to show you. This is this tiny little lens. This is a goofy little manual focus lens. Okay, so this is like the most hilarious little thing. Um, it's like the tiniest little, it's like a pancake lens is what you would call this. But this camera has really good autofocus. It has the newest, version of what Lumix is offering from autofocus, which is surprisingly good. Lumix is known for having bad autofocus, but they finally fixed it, and it's much better than ever. They had a recent update with the S5 IIs that was amazing. This has that same update. Very fast, very snappy, never had any issues with it. Uh, but they're kitting this camera with this lens. I don't know the exact details if it's something you have to pay extra for, if it's going to be included for free. I've heard rumblings that it will be included for free. Um, I like how small it is. I mean, I could literally stick this in my pocket, and then this becomes really the size of a X100. A little Fuji X100, except it's got an actual flippy selfie screen, which in my opinion is better than the flip out screen that the X100 has, but not everybody shares that same opinion. There's a lot of photographers that prefer the flip out kind. What's up, Jesse? I've got a new camera. Check it out. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And yeah, this is an interesting camera. It's got LUTs. There's a LUT button. I don't know why they're calling it a LUT. I feel like it would probably make more sense if it was called a film profile or a profile or an emulation, something like that. You do have a nice AF on button for those, autofocus lock moments. Oh, nice. What's up, Jesse? You got an A7 II. That's a great camera. A7 II fixed a lot of the problems with the first A7 and is still a valuable, amazing full frame option. Great job. I wonder how much you paid for it. How much you pay for it? So yeah, so I'm doing the stream to talk about the Lumix S9, which I was super stoked to be invited to Japan and check this thing out. I was there for a week, got back this weekend. This is why I was there. So if you have any questions about the Lumix S9, that's what this is about. Now, I am a thumbnail designer, a thumbnail artist. So if any of you guys join the stream that are part of the thumbnail community, let me know because hello, I'm working on some thumbnail content real soon. So keep your eyes peeled on my other channel, which is under the same username as my Twitter and Instagram and stuff. He bought it for 800 euros with a lens. Nice. $1,000. That's a great deal, dude. Enjoy. You have an EVF. I don't. Not with this thing. There's no EVF. I can't put it up to my eye. It's just a little screen. So Panasonic is kind of marketing this thing for like influencers or beginners. Um, but I think it's a little pricey for what it is, $1,500. Um, I don't know what kind of beginner is willing to spend, once you add a proper lens, by the way, this would be an equivalent actual good lens. This little pancake lens that they're kind of giving away for free is manual focus only, which is so strange. And it's an f8 only lens. It does not change. It's literally just an f8 lens, which I think is common within the pancake lens world. But Nikon has super tiny lenses with autofocus, with variable apertures, similar size to this. I think they make a 28 and a 40 millimeter that are both a very similar size. So I would love for Panasonic to make a small pancake sized autofocus lens would be nice. But yeah, an equivalent. This is a 26 millimeter. This is a 24 millimeter. So this is kind of the closest focal length that I have. This is a 1.8 from Panasonic. If I stick that guy on, Tristan, do you miss mechanical shutter? Great question. Yeah. So here is the sensor in all its glory. They've removed the mechanical shutter. And I will say on this camera, I did not notice it as an issue. In fact, I even tried taking pictures where I was kind of moving my hand back and forth. And the rolling shutter performance on this camera is so good that I did not experience any rolling shutter issues. And especially for the people that this is designed for, which I believe is kind of the beginner influencer type. If you're shooting a lot of YouTube content and vlogs, you're really not taking a lot of pictures. By the way, how are my audio levels? Let me know if I need to crank my audio or if it's too loud. I don't know. I don't actually have a really good read on the audio levels on YouTube here. I'm looking on my computer. I think if I talk really loud, it can peak. So I'll just keep an eye on it. But anyways, so this is what an autofocus lens. This is like a generally small lens from Panasonic, but the camera is so small now that lens looks massive. Look at that, and it definitely feels a little uh, top heavy. It feels a little off balance. So, but that's what a 24 millimeter would look like. And for reference, again, here's an S5 II, which is, by the way, only $200 more than this camera. So if you're a professional, get this one. The S5 II has no limitations that even come close to this. You got EVF. You got a much better grip because these lenses are so good and they are honestly small for what they are. Um, but they balance so much better on here. This is just a better setup. You get these little primes. This is a 50-1.8. This is a 24-1.8. They're both like the same size. They're pretty affordable for what they are. They feel great in the hand. I've got this nice, purchase on the grip. That's the term there. It's nice. You got a full size HDMI, no limitations with record limits. There's a fan in here. This guy cuts out every 15 minutes. No mechanical shutter, no hot shoe, no EVF. This is not for the pros. What's up, Ike? There's a small delay between your video and audio, it seems. Uh-oh. I don't know how to fix that. I'm sorry if there's a bit of an audio delay. I'm just using the default, like YouTube thing here. The YouTube live. So I apologize if there's a bit of a delay with my audio and video. You guys can just close your eyes and listen and not not know what's going on here. Um, yeah, so Tristan, to answer your question, I do not miss the lack of mechanical shutter. I was able to not really notice. Takes great photos. I haven't seen any type of audio peaking or audio peaking. My brain is mush right now. I haven't seen any image artifacts or anything like that. It seems to be pretty solid. But again, if you're a pro and you need flash, you're gonna need to buy the S5 II. It's got a flash sync and a mechanical shutter. This is the one to get for anything that would be considered pro. It's literally $200 more, and you get so much for that. And you could probably get one even maybe even cheaper, a better deal. Might be able to find one for 1500, which is what this is being sold for when these come out. But I believe all pros should have a backup camera. Like you really shouldn't go on a shoot with only one camera if you're a real pro freelance shooter. And these cameras are so good for video. They are some of the best hybrid cameras, if not the best. They have waveforms, you know, shutter angles, some great color science. The vlog system is fantastic. The LUT profiles are really useful. All the frame rates, the codecs. I mean, this camera is a beast for video. And then this guy is such a great little tiny kind of like B cam. Like this is a great camera to throw on a gimbal, get B-roll shots, and it's the same sensor as this camera. So even though there's some of the limitations I'm talking about, like the S9 still has trying to like frame this. The S9 still has the exact same image quality as this camera. I shot a bunch of stuff for a documentary using the S9 while I was in Japan, and I shot in vlog, handheld, using the amazing stabilization. There's no limitations with stabilization. It's the exact same IBIS system from the S5 II, and the footage looks amazing. It looks just like an S5. Um, there's just limitations with it. Recording limits on the S9. Okay, that's a good question, Tristan. So yes, the what's up, Paul? How are you, buddy? Okay, so let me turn it on so I can show you what it looks like. But the 4K record limits are 15 minutes. Yeah, not good. It's like we're living in 2015, which is what almost every camera back then was doing. Okay, so let me go to manual focus. So yeah, I'm in video mode. Okay, so let's see if that's might be overexposed a little bit, but you can see in the bottom left, right there. I'm in 4K, and I'm able to shoot for 15 minutes. This is technically the what mode am I in? I'm in the new MP4 Lite mode, which is an interesting mode that the Panasonic just put in this camera. It is a open gate mode that is really compact in file size. So it's like it's not a crazy like high 10-bit. Well, it is 10-bit. It's 420 10-bit actually. 3.8K open gate, 29 frames per second. You can't change it to 24. It's like they designed it for social media influencers to shoot open gate. They believe strongly that open gate is like the best solution for the influencer types. Um, but they just made the files smaller. Like it's more compact. I think it's like 25 megabits per second. So it's really low quality. But that limitation, it's 15 minutes record time. If I switch to 1080, so I'm shooting 1080 now, it switched to 20 minutes record limit. So in 1080, you can only record 20 minutes. So the most that you can record on this camera is 20 minutes. But let's go to MOV. Let's go like maximum mode here. So let's go 6K 30 frames per second. So this is 6K open gate 420, 6K on this tiny thing. Look at that. I mean, 6K recording in vlog, which has great dynamic range, great color science. 10 minutes. So it's gone down to 10 minutes now on the bottom left. So in the 6K, like full tilt, this is the proest mode you can get on this camera, 10 minutes. But basically, what happens when you do hit that limit, uh, you just hit record again. Like it doesn't overheat and then stop working. It just cuts out and then you have to hit record again. So it's kind of like we're living in the 5D era. I don't know if you guys remember or were a part of that time, but the 5D Mark II, had like a 12-minute record limit, I think, and all the old guys were complaining about that. I remember like the old school filmmakers were like, "How do you can't I can't use this. It cuts out." And I remember being a young person at the time. I was 17 or 18 when that camera came out when we were using it for weddings and I was like, "What are you talking about? We just hit record when it's done. Like it's not that big of a deal." We would shoot weddings, we'd shoot documentary, we'd shoot interviews. You just need multiple cameras to cover it. So again, if you had an S5 II as your A cam for a video shoot, this is your main primary camera. This never cuts out. This thing just goes for days. You can plug it in over USB-C while you're filming. It's got a fan in it. It's not you don't have to worry about it overheating. This is your A cam, and then this is your B cam. Even with the 10-minute record limit, like just stand next to it and have an operator on it. And every time it cuts out, just hit record again. So yeah, Tristan, I believe you are correct. This would be a great gimbal camera because again, the stabilization has not taken a hit here. There's no limitations with the stabilization. They did remove the mechanical shutter from this camera, so you don't have, for photography, you can't use a flash. You can't, you may run up against some rolling shutter artifacts. But for video, there's really nothing different about this than the S5 II other than the record limits. So with the exception of the record limits, this has all the same video quality as the S5 II, which is a very well respected, very popular, very powerful full frame digital cinema hybrid camera. So this really is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And even with this tiny little dumb lens, I was telling you guys, like, this lens is stupid. It's a manual focus, plastic f8 constant lens, but it's really sharp when you do nail it. And the bokeh looks really great because it's literally just a circle. You can't even, you see that? You can see the aperture right there. It's just a tiny little circle. So it's pretty cool. Because of that perfect circle there in the middle, it's got perfect bokeh. Nice, clean bokeh. So yeah, so ask me any questions. Paul, if you're here, ask me a question. Tristan, ask me more questions. You've got great questions, Tristan. I'm just gonna be live. I'm just gonna be here live taking questions. Yeah. Hi, Kashif. What is up? Ask me any questions you have about the Lumix S5 or S5, the S9. I've grown to love it. I initially didn't like it when I first picked it up. I thought it was cheap and weird and confusing. I still sort of feel that way, but I'm starting to understand more about it. Yes, Kashif. Check it out. Boom. Interchangeable lens camera. This is a full frame interchangeable lens camera. They removed the shutter. So when you're taking photos, it's basically just pulling it off of the sensor. So it's relying on the rolling shutter performance to make sure you don't have any rolling shutter artifacts. But, the S5 II, which is what this is based off of, has great rolling shutter performance. So you don't have to worry about that. It's pretty solid. I'm going to throw my 85 prime on here and show you what that looks like. This is the 85 1/8. So again, I really hope that Panasonic makes some small pancake lenses because this just throws it off. Like this makes it really top heavy. I may end up picking up that Sigma 45. There's a Sigma 45 2.8 that's like half the size. I think it's about that big. So, Paul, are there photo LUTs to upload? Yes. So, on the back of the camera here, what's up, Vlog City? Good to see you. On the back of the camera here, right there, is a big button that says LUT. I like big LUTs, and I cannot lie. If I push that button, I'm given the option to cycle through. These are the sample LUTs that they provide here. And then these are a couple of LUTs that I downloaded using the unreleased app. Oops, there's pictures of my kids in the bath. You guys should not look at that. I'm gonna get demonetized. Um, Sample LUTs, and then these are some of the LUTs that I downloaded, I think, on the marketplace, and I'll show you that too on my phone. But yeah, there's a it's actually free. You can't charge money for it, but on the new Panasonic app, you can download these different LUTs. And I just downloaded a couple that were on the little thing on the app, which I'll pull up right now if you guys are interested in it. Kashif, can it take Lightroom presets? Great question. No, it cannot take Lightroom presets per se, but what you do is you take your Lightroom preset, export it to Photoshop or open it up in Photoshop, and then you can actually export a LUT. It has to be a .cube file, like an actual LUT that you export from Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this new app works. This is if you look at my phone, bottom left, Lumix Lab. You can see all my other apps that I use. Feel free to pause the screen and look at all my other apps here. But yeah, so these are some of the photos that I've taken. It's already recognizing that my camera's here. The little blue light indicates that Bluetooth is on. And so I'm going to connect the camera. It already recognized that it was nearby when that little pop-up came up that says, "Do you want to join this camera?" I hit join, and the phone is doing its thinking process. And I am using my S5 right now as my webcam, so the autofocus is kind of all over the place. But yeah, so there's some cool settings in the new app here. High-speed transfer using 5G Wi-Fi. This is a really fast transfer rate, faster than anything I've ever used, at least. And then auto transfer. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like. So I can just keep this in my once I've connected it, I can just lock my phone, stick it in my pocket, or in this case, I'm just gonna set it down. And I'm gonna use a wide lens so you can actually see what I'm taking here. But yeah, I'm gonna just take a quick picture. I'll switch to just P mode so that it just auto adjusts everything. Okay, so I just took a picture, and check this out. I'm not even gonna do anything. I'm just gonna open my phone, and it said I opened it, and it literally just went to my photo album on my phone. Like, this is just Apple Photos, and it went straight to it. There it is. There's the picture I took. It's overexposed, doesn't look good. I just kind of took it real quick, So that's cool. And it's applied this also too. I guess I had a LUT applied to it. I don't remember what it was called, but it's this kind of moody, kind of greenish, shadowy thing. So yeah, so it's cool. It's anybody can make LUTs for it, and I would imagine that there's going to be people that will make their own LUTs for this camera and then sell them, and then you can use them, and it's like their version of a film recipe. I don't want to call it a film profile because this is way more custom than what like a Fujifilm film profile is doing. This is more of a film recipe kind of thing. Like, if you're in the Fujifilm world, you might be aware of that kind of thing, where people really customize the cameras. Paul, what is the price on this? $1,500. Not bad. I mean, it's a full frame, teeny tiny little camera. that really could be your main video tool. I don't think this is a good main photo tool, but it happens to be really good at photos too. And I've actually enjoyed using it for photos, even though it doesn't have an EVF and it doesn't have a flash sync. I personally, I rarely use flash. But if you're a professional photographer, especially a wedding photographer, this is not really for you, you know. But it's a fun little backup thing to have with you. Kashif, what is the build quality like? Great question. It's not great. It's better than. Yep, sorry, my audio cut out there. I do think it's better than Sony's offerings in the ZV line. I've held all those ZV cameras before, and they are very, very plasticky. This feels more solid than that, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Also, too, if it's not known yet, let me make it known. This camera was given to me as a loaner. This is a pre-released camera, so this may get better. Some of the limitations that I'm experiencing are based on what I have here in my hands. They may they may fix, maybe the record limits. I don't know. I did not hear that by anybody. I would imagine that the record limits are still going to be there um, whenever it comes out. But uh, anyways, it just so you guys know, my bias is that I did receive this as a loaner and was given a trip to Japan to check it out with a lot of other YouTubers. Um, but yeah, the build quality overall, I think, is pretty good. I saw somebody say, was it Tristan? How's the thumb grip on the back? So yeah, there's a bit of a hook there for your thumb. Not terrible, but it'd be cool if somebody made a little accessory since you're not really going to be using this hot shoe. It's not even a hot shoe again, it's a cold shoe because you're not going to be using this for anything other than microphones and lights if you're a video guy. For photographers, maybe a little thumbs up grip would be nice if somebody made an accessory, but it does kind of have a little thumbs up on it. Unlike a Leica, like a Leica doesn't have that at all. An M camera doesn't have that at all. So at least you have something here. And then Small Rig made this too. So I can put this on if you want to see this, but this little grip goes on here. They gave us these when we were there in Japan. So once this is on, it definitely fixes the grip issue. So let me attach that. It's got a nice little magnet on the bottom here where you can stick the key that you use to screw it in with. So it just kind of magnetizes there. You still have access to the battery door. It does use the S5 batteries, which are nice and chonky. They have good battery life, really good battery life on this. And it's upside down, but yeah. Now I've got a nice grip. Like this really fixes the grip situation, but I personally feel like it's better without it. I like it without it. It feels much lighter without it. Um, even with these big heavy lenses, which again, these are not really that heavy, but when they're on this camera, they feel heavy. Um, this grip will certainly help you. So if you don't care about how the camera looks, if you're not using it as like a dad cam and as like a EDC or everyday carry, and you're actually using it for work purposes, then get the grip. I think the grip is really solid. It's really good. It adds a lot of value. It definitely feels much better with the grip. It's a nice kind of leathery material. It's kind of a rubbery thing. It feels much better with that. And you obviously gain a nice little tripod mount. So if you were using this for vlogs, you could stick that straight onto a GorillaPod perfectly, or whatever mini tripod you're using. But I personally don't like it with the grip. I like taking the grip off. Um, did you see Sony, Nikon, or Canon shooters picking one up alongside their main cameras? That's a great question, Paul. So I think the answer to that varies based on the person. If you are a primary video shooter and you kind of think in the video mindset, yes. I think Lumix really wants people to start thinking about this camera and other cameras from them as as great photography tools too. So I do think this is a great photography tool, a great everyday carry. I really wish this lens was a real lens. This is a bad, dumb lens. It's a 26 millimeter f8 only aperture lens, full manual focus with no electronics too, like literally none. There's not even a, I mean, I don't even know why that's there. I guess that just tells the camera what it is, but you can't, once you start focusing it manually, it doesn't communicate to the camera. So like it's not doing any of the fancy Lumix like automatic zoom, features that you see when you do manual focus on like a normal Lumix lens. It's just focus peaking and then physically pushing magnify. I guess you could remap the AF on button here to be like a magnify button. So I guess that could work, if you're just constantly pushing that, checking focus, and then you take your picture. But you would only use that outdoors because f8 indoors is just not enough. And you can't use a flash. So you can't fix the fact that in an indoor environment, it's just f8. You can't open it up. You can't even close it down. So if it's super bright and you don't want to crank your shutter up, then and there's not even a filter thread on here either. So like if you wanted to throw an ND filter on here, if you're outside for video purposes, you can't either. You'd have to gaff tape it. Um, but to answer your question, Paul, do you see Sony, Nikon, Canon shooters picking one up alongside their main camera? I'm of the mindset that ultimately you should probably stick with the same brand all the way down. Um, but the cool thing about the Lumix is you can convert the Vlog to C-Log or S-Log, or I guess even in-log from Nikon. And so if you're using it as a video shooter, like as a B cam to a bigger, chonkier Canon, Sony, Nikon camera, and you want a small, compact thing, you can bring in the Vlog into Resolve and do a Vlog to S-Log conversion. And then with the real-time LUT feature in this camera, essentially shoot in C-Log on this camera. It's kind of an interpretation, or it's like an emulation, so it's not true to what it is, but I've heard really good things about that, and it is very powerful. So you could mix and match this with other things, and I do think this is a great everyday carry camera for people who are traveling, who have kids, etc. And I'm very excited actually about the upcoming kit lens that they did not give us. They have an 18 to 40 variable aperture. I think it's like a f4 to 5.6 or something. It might even be worse than that. Let me look that up. Um, but it's gonna be very small and compact, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's this little what is it? It's a little I see a picture here on B&H, but yeah, I can't find it. It's like a 14 to something. But yeah. What's up, geeky nerdy tech? How are you, buddy? Welcome. Good to see you, man. It was so cool to see you in Japan. Shane from Geeky Nerdy Tech is here. Uh, he is now a good friend, Australian musician and Geeky Nerdy Tech guy. Thanks for being here. Nigel, what is up? The record times made me sad. Guess it makes sense without fans. Correct. I think it's a combination of no fans and the small size. Um, I was kind of talking about this earlier, Nigel, but I don't know if you remember like the 5D Mark II days. Um, I certainly do. It was in 2008, 2009. Shows my age, I guess. Gosh, it's 2024 right now. 2008 was so freaking long ago. There's so many of you guys that were not even like adults yet, or whatever. But it just makes me feel older and older, but it's okay. In 2008, 2009, we were shooting on the 5D Mark II, and we felt like rock stars because we were using these tiny little, at that time, they were tiny little DSLR cameras, which were much bigger than even the S5 is now. And, here we are with this tiny thing saying, like, "I don't know, I can't tell, it's a blah, blah, blah." Like, so, anyways, the 5D Mark II had a 12-minute record limit, I believe. And we shot weddings with those cameras, and we would shoot wedding ceremonies that would last like an hour and a half. How did we do it? We would stagger the recording. I would record in the back, and then we would record on the sides, and we'd have operators standing next to each camera. We would all look at each other, and we'd make a signal when the cutoff would happen, and then we would like start stop. And like, it's like, oh, the 10-minute, we're at 10-minute mark, and I'd look over, and like one of the guys would kind of give me like a nod, like he's still recording, and I would start stop, and then he would do the same like a couple of minutes after me. And then we'd sync all the footage together in the multicam. If you had 3 cameras rolling, one of them start stops at a certain moment, you would just cut to the other one that was rolling, and that's how we did it. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to have an extra person standing next to every camera, because this can be your main camera. If you're a video shooter, don't buy this as your main camera unless you're willing to work around these limitations. It can be, it could be, it certainly could be for a YouTuber maybe. But there are times where you need longer record times. But this is your main camera. It has a fan in it, has no cutoff, super powerful camera, balances much better, feels much better in the hands with this nice grip. It balances really good with the lenses, and you have an EVF. You can look through here when it's really bright outside. It's weather sealed, big, nice, chunky HDMI port. But this is your nice compact B camera. And so you just roll with this as your A camera, and then this is your B camera. And when it cuts off, you start stop in those interview situations. But anyways, it is kind of sad though that it has record limits, because that would make it great. Even if it was like a low quality MP4 mode, I'd be okay with that. Like if there was just a mode that existed that gave me continuous recording. But in 6K, you have a 10-minute record limit. In 4K, you have a 15-minute record limit. And in 1080p, you have a 20-minute record limit. What is the vertical video shooting experience like? It's fine. It doesn't have anything specific to vertical shooting. Like when I rotate my camera, it doesn't, like the UI doesn't change. And the reason for that is Panasonic, when they announced this camera to us and they were talking about it, they kept going on and on about open gate and like what they feel like that is for. They really like believe in open gate. They really believe that open gate is the solution for vertical shooting, because it gives you so much more vertical resolution, so you can crop and post and have both. You can have both vertical and horizontal. I appreciate that, but kind of like this camera, it's like it's good at a lot of things, but not a master at any. And so I think when you are shooting in that way, there's always going to be limitations on the composition, on just being intentional about your shooting, and you might end up shooting wider than you really should. And I think there's compromises there when you shoot open gate for both, in my opinion. But I'm kind of a nerdy, perfectionistic kind of filmmakery type guy. So maybe I'm not the right guy to talk about it, but I still think there's value and importance in being intentional about your shooting for the platform. So if you're shooting vertical, I still think you should just shoot vertical. And if you're shooting horizontal, you should shoot horizontal. If you're wanting to do it simultaneously, and you're by yourself and you don't have the luxury of having an extra person there, um, then I guess open gate. But to be honest, my perspective is a phone. If you're shooting vertically and you want it to look good for social media, you should be shooting on a phone, not a nice camera, ultimately. So shoot horizontal like this and then mount your phone on top, you know? Then there you go. Now you got both. I don't know. Nigel, I remember those 5D days. I guess I was expecting a ZV-E1 type competitor. Still looks cool as an extra L mount camera though. Absolutely. No, I f like, I've had a bit of an existential crisis with this camera. I don't know if I wanna be that dramatic, Nigel, but I didn't like this camera for the first couple of days, but as I've kind of used it, like, around the house with the kids and stuff, I've taken a lot of pictures of the kids with it, especially without this grip. When you take the grip off, it's just really lightweight and really comfortable to carry around your neck, on a very small strap, especially with this teeny tiny lens here. Even though it's a dumb lens, if you're outside, which I've been a lot recently, I've been outside at summertime, basically here in Nashville. I was outside with the kids, like this works great. And then even these little these Lumix lenses, as big as they are, they're pretty light. They're kind of long and, compared to the camera, they're big, but they're pretty lightweight. So, and when you take that grip off, instead of walking around holding the camera like this, I was walking around holding the camera like this. So I'm holding the whole thing by the lens. I'm just walking around with the kids. I've got this here around my neck, maybe. Although I don't like straps personally, I'm just holding it like this. So I just walk around like this or throw it in the stroller because we have a baby. So strollers are great. You can put things in strollers. But yeah, I walk around like this. And then when I want to take a picture, um, it's nice to just have this compact little thing. But I miss having an EVF and it's not weather sealed. So, like, we were going to a splash pad yesterday with the kids, and I brought this because I knew I wanted to take some pictures of the kids, running around in the splash pad, and I didn't want this thing to get wet. It was also like so sunny and really hot yesterday, super hot, just super bright and sunny. I was like, I'm gonna want an EVF. So, and then when it comes down to it, if you're budget conscious and you just want the best hybrid with no compromises, with the exception of 4K 60 crop, if that's a compromise to you, this is it, man. This thing is like a freaking tank. This one and the 2X. I don't think it's necessary to get the X. I used to say get the X, might as well. It's only like $100 more, $200 more, and it's all black. I mean, I still believe that the all black looks cooler on the S5 2X, but the features that the S5 2X give you, I have never used as long as I've owned it. Like, I've never used the ProRes mode. And I think there's like a live stream feature there. I don't use that. So, the S5 II is can do everything, and you can get these on sale, um, pretty, all the time. This is the one to get for sure. Still, like, there's no compromise here, but this is cool. It's pretty cool. I agree though. The ZVE1. So, like, here's my thought on everything. So the ZVE1 from Sony. And by the way, can I share my screen? Yes, I can. Sweet. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Can you guys see this? Um, so here's that lens. By the way, it's $200. Uh, wow. Yeah, it's a $200 plastic, extremely lightweight body, Lumix S 26 f8 manual focus lens. It's basically a body cap, if we're being honest. I think it's odd that they're selling it like for that much. It should be $50. It's a $50 lens. But yeah, so the ZV-E1, oops, I didn't do the dash, but it doesn't matter. The ZV-E1's on sale right now, which I wonder if that was in anticipation for this camera. I believe this is probably its closest competitor, though it's still more money, but it has some better features, I think. I believe the mic is better on it, the built-in mic, although I will say the S9 does have a pretty dang good mic. It has a better grip here, and it doesn't have all the limitations for video. Like, this is a pretty much no compromise A7S type camera with just a small body. Um, but it's definitely not as fun as the S9 is. I believe the S9 is kind of fun. It's a fun camera. This is sort of a work tool for vloggers, and it certainly is kind of the closest competitor, especially now with there's a $300 discount. It's normally $2,200. And this S9, is going to sell for 1,500. So, and it comes in black, red, dark olive, night blue, which is the one I have, and jet black. If I could do it, I would actually get the black one. I like the blue. What's up, JP? You like the blue, JP? I like the blue. It's unique. It's different. But yeah, I think the black one looks cooler. It looks more like a Leica. Nothing on screen. It wasn't working? Darn. I was trying to share my screen, everybody. I noticed everybody left. I had like 11 people here and now they're all gone, but they're back. So was JP, was the screen sharing not working? Because I shared my screen in Chrome. I shared the B&H tab is what I was showing that whole time. If all that was black, I apologize. I just killed the stream because of that. Ask away. Whoever's here, 7 people who are here, ask me any questions you have about the LUMIX S9. Geeky, nerdy tech. I don't know if you're still here. What are your thoughts on it, man? I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I'm just going to sit here and just answer questions because I didn't have time to get my whole video done. I'm a full-time thumbnail artist at the moment. And I've just been really busy with making thumbnails, building a future like course and YouTube channel on a separate channel. If you notice, my name has changed here. I'm going as Gear Guy, which is a bit of a callback to a silly music video I made a long time ago. Whoa, that went really loud there. Sorry about that. Check, check. 1, 2. What's up, Connor? Hey. Connor, I'm just using the built-in live streaming on YouTube, so I don't think I can add you. I wanted to have a conversation with Connor. Finally up and moving. Yeah, Connor probably stayed up super late to get his video done. I was up till about midnight working on my video, and I was like, this isn't worth it. I'm not in this game anymore. I don't need to play this game. I'm going to go to sleep. And so I did. JP, Nigel, Geeky Nerdy Tech, anybody who's here, say hi, ask me a question, give me your thoughts. I'm curious. Anybody, what are your thoughts? Connor, I know you like it, especially for photos, and that's kind of what I've been talking about. As you can see, this lens, this camera option just looks really clean, really nice. I don't have an X100 on me, but I believe it is a very similar size to an X100. It is smaller and lighter than a Leica Q, which I believe this is kind of cool. It's sort of like a Leica Q, but not really. I will say this camera does have a mode that I really like, the Leica monochrome profile, which is not on the S5s yet. It was first on the G9 II, the Micro Four Thirds camera, and they put it on this, which is nice. I think it's strange that they made this as a full frame first, although I think it's going to be more popular here because full frame is just more popular. And you can throw a vintage 35mm lens on here and get full coverage. It's like it's not a crop sensor, unlike a Fuji camera. Any Fuji cameras are APS-C, other than the medium format ones, but then those are really big and expensive. So yeah, this is a true full frame camera that you can use for photography. Doesn't have an EVF, doesn't have a lot of pro features, but it's got amazing stabilization, great image quality. It's got that Leica monochrome profile, and then all these cool LUTs that you can add. So I think overall, it's a really powerful, fun camera. And there are limitations, there are annoyances with it. It's kind of cheap, it's kind of plasticky feeling, but it's still fun, and that's cool. Like, I haven't really been having fun with cameras in a while, and so again, full disclosure, this was given to me by Panasonic. Was flown to Japan. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but these are my opinions. I'm not being paid to say these things. Nigel, I think we need more L mount pancake lenses. Absolutely agree. That is the number one problem with this, in my opinion, is the lack of lenses. And that's one of the main reasons I don't recommend Lumix to everybody, because like these primes that they have are fantastic. Um, they're kind of, I hate to say it, they're a little boring, which is really first world and really annoying of me to say. But they don't have a ton of character. They're just good. They get the job done. You can use them for work. I think the 50 and I think the 85 in particular has a really nice look to it. The 85-18 has a really good image. Um, some of these other ones though, like the 35 is what I'm using right now. It's good, but I wish I had a little bit more character, a little more interest, you know? But that's where I think this could be fun. You could put old Leica glass on here. Connor, who's here, has these old Contax Zeiss lenses, and he used that on his video, which by the way, everybody should go check that out today. Go to Connor McCaskill's channel and check it out. um, I was gonna link that for you, buddy. Let me see, Connor McCaskill. Yeah, so using old vintage glass on this thing, I think is a ton of fun. Um, Very cool, Connor. I love your thumbnail. Great thumbnail. Who helped you with that? I don't know. I didn't help you really. I just told you that I liked it. I'm still getting used to seeing my name as Gear Guy. It's kind of dumb, but I love it. But yeah, Nigel, I think we're just still a little early. Panasonic is just being a little slow here. Last year when Connor and I did the podcast and we talked about the S5 II, I think what I said was like, "This is exciting. You can now kind of buy into Lumix and sort of treat it as an investment. Everything that you need is there. The trifecta of lenses are there. They have a 16 to 35, though it's f4, but it is really sharp and really high quality. They have a 24 to 70, though it's big and heavy and expensive. They have a 70 to 200, though it's expensive. Um, and then Sigma, I think, is kind of the solution to a lot of these problems. Sigma makes a lot of really great glass for the L mount with the L mount Alliance. And in particular, there's a 17 millimeter, a 24 millimeter, and the 45 millimeter Sigma contemporary lenses that are these tiny little, not much bigger than this, little primes. And so I personally would love to pick up the 24 and the 45 and use them on this. I think it would be a nice match. But I do think Panasonic themselves need to work on lenses. Um, we kind of need to be a little patient, I think. I think this is a worthy company to invest in. They seem to have learned their lesson. They finally did the autofocus. They made the autofocus good too. Like I think it's actually really solid. And with the most recent updates, I haven't had any real problems. I hope they add features like what the Canons have, like the oh Connor, what was it called again? Like the autofocus lock or whatever. Like basically when you walk out of frame, it stays where the face was last seen. I forget what they called it, but that's a great mode where like if you stepped out of the frame, it doesn't just focus on the background. Like if I move my head, it just focuses on the background, which is just not natural. It should just stay where my face was last seen. That's how it would be if an operator was using the camera. I would love stuff like that to come out, but I do think the autofocus is pretty solid. I do think like the way that I'm doing this stuff right now, it'd be cool if they had a mode that was like the product showcase mode from Sony as well. These are things that can happen with firmware, but I think it's worth it to get these two. If you're still using Canon right now, if you're a Canon shooter, just dump the Canons and get this and this. These two are a nice little match. The exact same sensor, exact same color science. For video, this really will trick people. Like it looks the exact same, the most amazing stabilization you can imagine. There's just limitations with the record time. So as long as you can work around that, and you get that by using this as your A cam, you can kind of get by, and it's a little cheaper too. It's it's like $200 cheaper, so it is cheaper, as it should be. Should be probably even more cheaper. I would love it if this was like $1,100, or something like that. Please let me hear the shutter sound. Okay. let me I'll just go to like what's this? 250th of a second. Okay. You ready? This is what it sounds like. Oh, microphone's right here. You ready? So there is no mechanical shutter, but I think they're doing a sound effect through this. There's a speaker right there next to the S9 logo. Oh, where is it? Everything's mirrored. Yeah, so there's a speaker there, so it creates a sound when you take a picture. Yeah. So, but you can just turn that off completely, um, and do silent shutter, and there's no difference. Like if you use silent shutter on this, it's essentially doing what this does, which is it's not using the mechanical shutter, using only the electronic shutter. This is electronic shutter only. There is no mechanical shutter. So that is simply just a sound coming out of a speaker. And it sounds good. It sounds kind of like a film camera a little bit. um, do you think this will be a good introductory camera to get people invested into the L mount system? And do you think this has a genuine chance at being an X100 6 competitor? Great question, Tristan. I'm thinking about the X100 question. Mm, I'm not sure. We're gonna have to like wait and see what the market decides. I think it's a hard question for me to answer because in theory, like if the X100 6 is sold out, but then this is available and people start to take a liking to the fact that it's got all these cool LUTs that you can apply that are really good. Um, maybe, but in order for this thing to be the same size as an X100, you have to use this lens. And this lens is a terrible lens. So this is an f8 that cannot be changed in either direction. It can't be closed down and it can't be opened up anymore. And it's manual focus only. And there's no flash on here. So if I would actually be more okay with this if I could use a flash with this camera because you could do some vibey, cool stuff with it. Kind of like Joe Greer. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He shoots on a Leica, and he uses a little flash that connects onto the hot shoe. And there's like a little cable that comes off. I think it's a Canon flash, and it's got this little handheld flash, and he's using it all the time like this. He'll go pop like that, or pop like that, or pop like this, or whatever. It's an old school way of doing a kind of a vibey party flash, but he uses it on the street. He literally uses a flash on the street. And if you could use a flash with this, you could get by with using this indoors. You could kind of just pop a flash if you had an off-camera flash, pop. So you're gonna have to use a constant light source, like an aperture, one of those little aperture lights. You have to carry that around with you everywhere. Turn the light on, take a bunch of pictures, and then turn the light off. That's just weird. You could do that. I've done it. I'm a weirdo. So I guess maybe you could do that, but it's super hard to like if I'm doing it all one-handed, if I'm holding the aperture light and I'm trying to like manually focus, that's a problem. And by the way, there's also no focus marks on here. It's like but it's a real manual focus lens. It's not a focus by wire lens. This is a real actual geared real manual focus lens. You can see the element going back and forth. There's no focus marks. So even if you were trying to do like if you're trying to do what's it called? Okay, I'm shooting at f8 on this camera. So from a foot to 6 inches is in focus, or whatever it is, or a foot to 5 feet is in focus. And you can start to like think in that mindset, like, okay, I need to focus here. I forget what that's called. It's a form of street photography. Just don't use this lens. Even if you want to shoot manual focus, use a real like Voigtlander or M mount lens. Like, don't use this lens for that. So to answer your question, I don't think this is really the same as an X100. It doesn't look as cool. It does look kind of cool. It's cooler than a ZV-E1 for sure. It's got way more personality than that. Um, it does look good. It looks like a Leica. It really does, especially from the top here. And if it was all black with like a nice silver Leica lens on it, and if you blacked out the Lumix logo here with just some tape, um, people probably would think it was a Leica, to be honest. And you've got that great Leica monochrome mode in the profiles here. They still have all the standard profiles that Lumix has always had: natural, standard, this new Leica monochrome, and then obviously, of course, Vlog. But when you use this LUT button, that's where this new feature comes in, where you can load in LUTs. You can make them and you can load them in. Um, yeah, so it's pretty cool. I'm actually going to open this up again because I think somebody was asking about that. Will you and Connor be doing a golden hour podcast about the camera? I'm gonna have to talk to Connor. I think he's got a busy day today, and he's pretty tired. But Connor, if you're still here, I'm down to do it if you are. I think it'd be fun to kind of rant about it a bit. Okay, Gear Guy Lumix Labs app compatible only with S9 or other S series cams? Not yet, unfortunately. In fact, the some of the features like triggering the record and like changing your settings while using the camera are still only available on the traditional Panasonic app at the moment. This is a beta unit. This isn't even out in the App Store yet. I had to use Test Flight to get this on here on my Apple phone. The Android users just downloaded it, sideloaded it, or whatever. Um, that's all subject to change. I was told by Panasonic that I believe Lumix Lab is the future of the app. I believe they're going to fold everything that's in the traditional Lumix Panasonic app into this at some point. But at the moment, it is only an S9 app that allows you to do these LUTs and stuff. So let me actually show you what that would look like to like make a LUT on here. So you go over to, let me bring my exposure down on my phone so you can see it a little better. So these are the LUTs that I have here. And there's a little marketplace where a couple of creators have already loaded up their LUTs, trending LUTs, creator LUTs, Lumix LUTs, etc. Drinks whiskey. Current app is a chore, so hopes are high. Something improves. It's okay. I don't know what the deal is with these camera companies. They make terrible apps, and this I've heard from some of the guys that were in Japan that they liked it better, but and it's fine. It's just it feels like it's going to crash at any moment. Again, I'm using a beta. This is a beta software. I'm sure it'll get better. But then again, almost all of these camera apps are always kind of buggy and kind of crappy. It's really frustrating that we just can't get a good app, but yes, this is what the like little LUT download store is going to look like. You know, you can look at like a creator. Like I clicked on this creator here, who I guess Panasonic gave them early access here. It's got like a little profile with all of their LUTs here. I think it's only free at the moment, so you won't be able to sell LUTs on this marketplace thing. Also, I'm not sure if like they just let anybody on here, um, or if you have to be like invited or something. But yeah, if I go to creator, you can see a list of a lot of the people that were invited by Panasonic. You know, these are a lot of the YouTubers that I'm friends with and stuff that were there. But yeah, like all the creators are here, and you can just select their account and look at a LUT that they've made. Nice, golden hours. And then you can click on the LUT that they're getting. Again, it's only for free. But you can look at it starts in a the base of this LUT is based on a vlog profile. And then this is the LUT that he has made. Oh gosh, it's not focusing. This is the LUT that he made, and you can kind of look at what it looks like back and forth, and he gives a little description of it, and then you just hit download like that. It downloads that LUT. I then have to go to the LUT tab here. It shows on my device on the bottom. Oh gosh, golden hours at the bottom. And then I have to then load it into my camera. So I think I select it. Share? No. No, no, no. How do I do it? And then I go to camera. Transfer to camera. So I'd like to transfer it to camera. So let me go to camera. I'm going to turn off the auto transfer. I think that's it. I turn off auto transfer on the camera settings. Again, this is really finicky, man. Look at this. This is really finicky. Wi-Fi connection lost. See, look, like it disconnected. I got to reconnect it. Oh gosh, I don't want to do this. See, I hate all this stuff. I can't stand these apps. So this has been my experience. Is like I want to transfer that golden hours one, and it was blurred out. I don't know if you could see it. It's hard for me to kind of go back and forth here, but I downloaded that golden hours LUT from that guy, and it's on my device. Okay, I guess I literally downloaded it to my phone, I guess, and then it has to send it to the camera. It doesn't do it automatically. And yeah, it's not here. It's not on the camera. I'm cycling through. So I had to turn off auto transfer. And then when I did that, I disconnected from the camera. So I got to reconnect to the camera. And then I have to manually transfer it back. So LUT transfer. Anyways, I think the app sucks. Sorry. It's just, but don't take my word for it. Maybe they'll change it in a couple months when it comes out. Akashi 11. Can you record with an external SSD? No, you cannot. You cannot record externally on the S9. That is a limitation. It's also a micro HDMI port. So you can see it there on the top. Micro HDMI. Woohoo! We're back into the micro land. I guess it makes sense. This is a tiny little camera. A lot of the influencers that I think they're trying to market this for are not using HDMI anyways, except for live streaming and stuff like that. But okay, here we go. So now I'll show you what this looks like. So I reconnected. So let's try this again. So I downloaded this LUT on the marketplace, golden hours. Transfer to camera. Once I turned auto transfer off, that showed up. I transferred to it, and then I'm just going to scroll down. There's a couple of pages here. Where's the most? Yeah, the one set 10 is an available slot. I hit LUT transfer. It's transferring to my camera, and now you can see when let me end the connection. Yes. Come on. There you go. Please wait. So now when I go to the LUT, dadgummit, sorry guys. Let me also lower my brightness a bit so that you can see a little better. Monitor backlight. There you go. Okay. So if I go to LUT right there and I cycle through, those are the samples, and then there it is, golden hours. That's the one I just downloaded. And you can see what I'm talking about too, about this dumb lens. It's manual focus only. I have peaking turned on. You see that little box right there? If this were a normal Panasonic lens with electronics, it would zoom in, which is really useful. I have to manually do that by pushing this button here, and obviously you could map that to any other button you want. Some of the guys who were there using this lens mapped it to the AF on button, so you could use that to magnify. And you can move this around like so. The only way you can move it around on the screen is by using a touchscreen because there's no joystick. Unlike the S5, which has a proper joystick, an EVF. So yeah, again, I still think the S5 is way, way, way better user experience overall. But yeah, it's weird that they're selling this lens and it's got all these limitations, but you can see how it focuses and how I'm using the focus peaking. It is kind of a challenge to know if you're really in or not, but anyways. So yeah, I just took a picture and it looks okay. Golden hours doesn't look good in this environment. Especially with that terrible lens. But yeah, so the app is a little weird. And yes, in terms of the pricing and the size and who this is for, Akashi 11, it makes sense that it doesn't do external SSD ProRes recording. The only camera that does that right now is the G9, which is a Micro Four Thirds camera, the G9 II, and the S5 IIX. The app is not available Highland Falls. It is not available yet. The app that I'm using is a beta copy, and it is not available yet. It will be available when the camera ships. So, which I don't know when it's shipping, to be honest. B&H is not telling us when I went on the website here, and I'm not sure if Panasonic even announced it either. So let me look. I'm going to go on Panasonic's X account or Lumix. Lumix USA. Brand new Lumix S9. You guys hear that? Small compact camera with professional grade features. Yeah, I like the red one a lot. A couple of my buddies got the red one. I think that one pops really nice. Again, if I could do it over again, I would have just got a black one because the black with like a silver Leica lens will, and then if you black out the Lumix logo, make it look like a Leica. But blue's cool. I like blue. It's fun. Yeah, so I'm not seeing anything on when it's available. Uh, I think it's not gonna actually ship until like September, I think is what I was hearing, which is a long time from now. So, anyways, ask me any questions. I'm still here. I'm here taking your questions, taking your cues. I'm gonna stay here for another 30 minutes or so, unless this thing really takes off. I do need to finish my actual video on it. And I got a lot of thumbnails to make today as well. So, yeah. Ask me any questions, guys. I'm here. I'm here taking your questions. I kind of love not posting at the exact moment as everyone else because I can see what they're all doing and make a different one. Yeah. It's the grain effect available for all profiles, not only for the L Neo like the S5 II. I think there might be a typo there. Let me look because I did update this recently. I think they might have some unity on that over time. That is a feature of the new S9 here, is they're including some really nice film grain modes. I'm gonna go through this. I'm on the S5 right now, so I'm in the photo in the standard noise reduction. Yeah, I'm not seeing film grain there. Let's go to real time LUT noise reduction. Yeah, I don't see it's LUT and noise reduction. It'd be nice if they had some unity because again, I believe this is a better all-around camera. This is a better photography camera than the S9 technically. You've got a flash sync, you have a mechanical shutter, you have an EVF, you've got a joystick on the back, which is really useful. I'm so used to the nipple, the joystick. I use it constantly for photography, always moving things around. It certainly is heavier, and bigger, but not by that much. I mean, it is quite heavier, but you get used to it. It'd be nice if they had all the same features with all the cool LUT features that they have on the S9, as well as the film grain, and I do love the Leica monochrome profile as well. So yeah, Tristan. So yeah, Highland Falls. The answer to your question is at the moment the S5 II does not have the film grain modes. Will they add it? Maybe. That's a good question. I'm gonna ask the Panasonic people and get back to you. Let's see. Will S5 II get film grain and LUTs like S9? Cool. I just wrote that down. Okay. Tristan, is this Lumix's attempt to draw people in to the L mount? Do you think this camera will Lumix to grow and broaden their appeal? Great question again, man. Tristan, you've been just nailing it with really thoughtful questions. Thank you for all these questions. I really appreciate you being here. I mean, obviously, they want people to buy their cameras. They want people to buy their lenses. So I would argue that every camera that they make is an attempt to draw people in. Um, I think so. What I was told is that this camera right here, the Lumix S5 II, was one of their best-selling cameras of all time, if not the biggest. So this camera, the S5 II, was a massive success, which is great. I'm really happy for Lumix. Um, they've got a great camera here, great features, great footage. I'm very pleased with it. I used to be a little um because I was such a Canon guy. I still have my C70. I need to sell it because I feel very comfortable in the Lumix ecosystem. Again, look at me. I'm just sitting here with all this stuff, right? Like it's so dumb that I have all this stuff. I feel extremely blessed and like I can totally be completely biased here because this is what I have. This is what I've been given too. I didn't pay for it. Okay? I I understand my unbelievable you know, gift here that I've been given. I've worked my tail off for 6 years being a YouTuber for Indie Mogul and then with Kinotika, with Golden Hour. Um, that does not justify or give me like I'm not expecting and I'm not entitled. That's the word I was looking for. Because of my hard work on YouTube, getting millions of views, hundreds of thousands of views in the camera gear space, I am still not entitled to be invited to these things or given free gear. Okay, so I understand this is an extreme gift. This is like the 1% of people. And I understand that and I acknowledge that unbelievable gift. I'm very thankful for it. And I hope you guys understand I never want to be braggy. I never want to be pretentious or egotistical. Um, I don't want you guys to feel jealous either. So I always try to say things and try not to create jealousy. And I hope you're not. I could understand why you would be. I have all these lenses and cameras that I got for free. Um, but it is just the situation I'm put in here. So I'm proud of the hard work I've put into YouTube that affords me the ability to be invited to these things and given these things. And so hopefully, as I'm sitting here spending 2 hours of my workday talking to you for free, you can see why they do that and why I love being a part of this community. That being said, if I had a bunch of money and I was a professional filmmaker, freelance shooter, I had $5,000 to spend on a new system starting from scratch. Would I buy the Lumix system? And is this their attempt to draw people in to the Lumix ecosystem? Yes, they're trying to get the kind of beginner X100 crowd, I think, with this. And I think it's a really good attempt. I think it's a good try. And I think it'll be interesting to see how this sells because this thing, I believe, is one of the best values on the market right now. That being said, if I had $5,000 to spend on like a camera system, would I, even with all the power of this, buy this over a Sony? No, I wouldn't. I would buy a Sony camera. Why is that? Everybody shoots on Sony. It's just a fact. Every single person that I know shoots on Sony now. They shoot on the A7S, the FX3. So if I was a working professional in a industry town like LA, New York, Nashville, which is where I live, everybody's shooting on Sony. So buy a Sony camera. That's what everybody's shooting on. Do you think people are going to hire you because, well, here's the thing. I don't think you should be getting hired because of what camera you own, but the sad reality is often, at least in my experience, I was getting hired and I was bringing my gear with me, and that's part of the reason why I was being hired, and I could charge a little bit more as well, to get hired to do jobs, whether it was a wedding or a commercial shoot or a music video shoot, and I don't know if you guys can speak like I'm speaking here and say, but just my experience has always been that when a DP would hire me or a director or producer would hire me, they would say, "Hey, do you have a camera or lens you could bring? What do you have? What do you use?" And it used to be Canon, and when I would say Canon, they're like, "Great, that's what we're shooting on Canon, that's great." But right now, everything's being shot on Sony cameras. That's just a fact, okay? Like, obviously, there's Blackmagic shoots, there's Canon shoots still, there's people shooting on Red, Alexa, and for those Alexa and Red shoots, they're not gonna care about these cameras, anyways, and they're not gonna be asking you to bring it. But if you are a solo guy, if you own your own business, if you are the production company, and it doesn't matter what camera you shoot on, you just want an affordable, you want your money to go far and you want your tools to be high quality, yes, then I would buy this. I would buy this setup. If I had $5,000, I'd buy this. I'd buy two of these, and a couple lenses. Um, if you want to have a fun camera in addition to your work camera, this is a fun camera. This is a really fun camera and a pretty dang good B camera because there's no limitations to this with this. Um, and this is a fun little duo to get for sure. But the sad reality that is Lumix was too late to the party. They're like 3 or 4 years late, in my opinion, with this whole autofocus thing. They made a mistake not switching to this autofocus soon enough. And because of that, Sony just ate their lunch over the last, 5 years. And they're playing catch up and they're going really slow too. But in a 10-year trajectory, you know, we're going to have a lot of great options from Lumix. I would imagine they're going to have a lot of great lenses as well. Um, I think they're going to keep going with Micro Four Thirds at least for the time being, but overall, I don't imagine they would stick with it forever. So I do think it's a worthy investment. It's a great bang for buck. I think it's a better. I would rather have this than a Blackmagic camera. Let's just say that. Similar price point too. It's $1,800, I think, for an S5 II. The Blackmagic cameras have great footage, but I would rather have a Lumix because it's a hybrid and it's got EVF and autofocus. Blackmagics don't have that. So, anyways, I just went on a little rant there. Interesting for still shooters. Can this synchro scan remove banding issues by artificial light? Yes, I believe so. This has synchro scan built in. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so exactly. You can dial in synchro scan, which is like basically just changing the shutter angle or the shutter speed by like really tiny, like fractions of a speed, and that can help with getting banding out. And that's the problem with not having a mechanical shutter, which is why you're asking that, right? MPS6 driver. Highland Falls, cheers. I bought the GH5, would have been their best-selling camera. I thought the GH5 would have been their best-selling camera. Good to hear the S5 II sold well. Yes, exactly. I also thought the same thing. I think there was a huge pent-up demand and a lot of people switching probably from Canon and maybe even from Sony too. As good as Sony is, as I just went on that whole rant, if you do invest in a Sony system, you're spending a lot of money because their G Master lenses are very expensive and their camera bodies are quite pricey. A7S III is still, I think, $3,500, right? Okay, I mean it is $3,500, but on B&H right now it's $3,198. That camera's been out for a couple years now. It's been 4 years. It came out in 2020. I remember very vividly. It was COVID time, and this was such an exciting camera to finally come out. It was so highly anticipated, and it still is like kind of the king. Still, I think they could probably tweak the color on it if they did a A7S IV soon. I think it'd be nice to see what they would do now. I would imagine that they're going to learn from Lumix to shutter angle and open gate, and anamorphic shooting would be nice. If they start doing all those things, it starts to make the Lumix look less appealing from a specs sheet, but from a price point, the Lumix is always going to beat it because I think that's Panasonic's kind of game. Is their way of beating everybody else is by charging less money. Like Canon, Nikon, and Sony are charging way more for their bodies. Did Lumix hint at making a photocentric variation of the S9? Would love to see this camera with a mechanical shutter, EVF, and tilt screen. That would be dope. I agree, Tristan. Again, thanks for still being here. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully, I'm not. I assume a lot of you guys are maybe just kind of listening, just kind of chilling, hanging out while you work. So thanks for being here. I agree. So my thought on this is like it's in this weird in between. It's got a lot of pro features that I like as a pro. Again, the video is great. I've never, it's the same video as the S5 II. Dual native ISO, 6K recording, vlog recording, best stabilization on the market, literally, bar none. I've never seen better stabilization. It's finally surpassed Olympus even, which I for years was like, everybody talked about how good Panasonic stabilization was on the GH5, which it was, but the Olympus actually was even better because they had a really good electronic stabilization mode. Well, now Panasonic has done some incredible electronic stabilization on here. There's like a strong stabilization in electronic mode that is like a gimbal now. It's insane. And that's all in here. So yeah, it's got all these pro features, but then it's like this tiny plasticky body, doesn't have an EVF, doesn't have a flash sync, doesn't have a mechanical shutter, mini HDMI port, which I guess I'm okay with. A photocentric version of this with kind of, like you said, man, like the mechanical shutter, EVF, and a flash port. Just those features alone, I would pay more for that, and it'd be a better photography tool. It'd be a little bit bigger, probably. I think oh gosh, I actually did drop it. I thought I caught it. I did catch it, and then I dropped it. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why it's so small is because those things aren't in here. Maybe that's why it's so tiny. Is because they removed the mechanical shutter. I'm not sure if they did that for a price reason too. Maybe that's saving a little bit of money. Oh, I got a little bit of coffee on here. Little coffee stain on my blue D brand skin. Um, yeah, so I don't know if they're gonna do a more pro version of this. I wish they would, and I hope they will. I don't know if they will. Technically, the pro version of this is the S5 II. So this is a photocentric version. Technically, it's got EVF, it's got a flash sync port, it's got a mechanical shutter. That's probably the argument that Panasonic would make if I said, "Can you just make a more pro version of this for photographers?" It's like, "Yeah, we make that already. It's called the S5 II." But I know what you mean. You want a rangefinder, and then if you really want that, then you need to look at a Leica probably because you're. That's the other thing too is I'm like, it's almost like a Leica. I kind of love it, but it's still missing a lot of these things, and I'm like, well, if I really wanted a Leica and I was obsessed about a Leica and I could afford it, like, just get a Leica. Ultimately, just get an old Leica Q2 used or something. What I do appreciate is the AQ compatibility. AQ. Can you clarify MPS6 driver? Can you tell me what you mean? AKKU. What does that mean? um, let's see. If anybody else is still here that has questions, please ask away. I've got the Lumix S9. Wonder why it looks like the resolution on this is super bad. But anyways, let's see here. Hello, everybody. You back? Battery. Sorry. What I do appreciate is that the battery is compatible with the S5 II. Absolutely. Same battery. I took it out because I was using the S5 II a minute ago. Yep, same exact battery. Nice, chunky, long-lasting Panasonic DMW BLK22. Great. This is a great battery. Fantastic. And it works the same on both. And it's a very long-lasting battery on the S5 II, which means on this camera that doesn't have a mechanical shutter or an EVF, lasts similar, if not more, in some cases, because it's a nice small camera. It might actually technically last less because you're using the screen more, which I would assume uses more power than an EVF. But there's some auto, backlight battery saving modes, obviously, that you can use here. Again, they're kind of marketing this for the influencer types. And apparently, like, I didn't really notice or recognize this, but apparently the like Gen Z audience or like that kind of influencer audience, like they really don't use EVFs on cameras at all. Even on an X100 with those kind of trendy people, they're just so used to using their phone to take pictures. They don't even think about an EVF. And so, I think Panasonic did some market research. And then that's also just some of the experience that I've heard from like commenters and different people saying, I never use an EVF. I'm used to using my phone. I just don't even think about it. So yeah, so I think, I'm just kind of getting old a little bit. It's like you just use the screen, take pictures with the screen. But man, I really dislike that workflow. I really do love, and it would look so cool to have a little rangefinder there. And I guess if you're using a manual focus lens with focus marks, you could use like an old Voigtlander you know, uh, little Voigtlander frame guide that could go into the cold shoe, and you could just use that to frame, and then you use manual focus and verify on the screen. Or if you're a good photographer, you could. I wonder if you could. Can you take pictures when this is closed? Let me see. I'm gonna turn the camera on. Yes. Okay. So even when the screen is closed, I can take pictures. That's cool. So I can have um, a manual focus lens with focus gauges, focus marks on it, like distance gauges, and actually do like the Sunny 16 rule and be a street photographer, have the screen completely closed here, lock your focus with a distance gauge, and then use a little Voigtlander frame guide. And then now you're taking street photography camera, street photography stuff, kind of like a film camera. The only problem is there's no way to know your shutter speed or ISO settings here. So you could either shoot in like an automatic mode, and let the camera do the thinking for you, or just lock your settings, beforehand. So yeah, it's like ISO 640 and shutter, whatever it needs to be, 1/25th of a second in here or whatever. Lock it, and then boom, it's just locked. And you're just taking pictures blindly, which is kind of fun. Cool. Does anybody else have any other questions? Any other questions at all? Again, I think my personal opinion is it's weird that okay, yeah, here it is. The Lumix 18 to 40 f4.5 to 6.3. Excuse me. That camera, the 18 to 40 to, is a very small, compact, full frame kit lens. I'm excited about that one. That we don't know when that's coming. They did not give it to us in Japan. They showed us a couple pictures of it. But that's slow, but at least it's at least it's autofocus, and at least you can change the aperture, uh, you know, in either direction. You can open it up to 4 or 5, uh, you know, by zooming out all the way to the end, or you know, you can at least stop it down to another. You can stop it down to f8 or whatever you need. It's an actual real lens with electronics. And it's a very small little zoom lens. And it's cool that it's 18 millimeters on the wide end on a full frame. So it's sort of like a 16 to 35, except you get a little extra at 40. And it's a kit lens and it's small. Again, it is slow, but I'm okay with that. Like I understand that you have to make things slow to make it small. So that's cool. Whenever that comes out, I think that's going to be a nice, really nice lens on the camera. They'll be the perfect kind of little vlog lens, especially for outdoor stuff and for travel and stuff like that. That will actually probably end up being my main kind of little carry everywhere camera. Tristan, I just followed you on Instagram. Thanks for following me there. Cool. Looks like you're an S5 II shooter. That's great, dude. How do you like it? I think you're gonna love this camera then. If you're already an S5 II fan and shooter, this is a nice little bonus fun camera to carry around with you. So I think you're gonna like it, Tristan. So the fact that you already have an S5 II is great because that again my microphone just got hot. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, okay. So you've been a Lumix guy since the GH4. That's amazing. Fantastic. By the way, whoever's here, if you haven't liked this live stream yet, could you please give it a like, give it a thumbs up? That it's not just my own vain request here. It's actually just kind of helps with the video, gets people to see it. YouTube's algorithm will like kind of pump it out. So I'd appreciate it if you give it a like if you haven't already, if you're still here. Anybody else have any questions? Let me know. Um, I do need to like make a proper video on the camera, so give me any questions that you have about it, and I'll uh, kind of answer them and talk about them in the video. I'm gonna probably do a little bit of sleuthing and see what other people are talking about on their other channels, and then just have a video ready for tomorrow or later tonight. So weird. The live stream thumbnail is like super low res. What is going on there? Weird. Weird, weird. Is that a low res thumbnail that I uploaded? I don't even know. No, that's a really sharp, clean, good looking thumbnail. Why is it such a low res thumbnail on YouTube? I don't understand. Weird. Live monetization. Okay. Anyways, let's see. What can I edit the thumbnail? I don't know. Sorry guys. I'm not understanding why the thumbnail is such a low res image on that live stream. I just re-uploaded it. So maybe it'll look a little cleaner. I don't know. I'm a little obsessive about thumbnails. If you didn't know, for those of you who have been around here for a while or who know me from the Kinotika and Indie Mogul days, I am now actually a full-time thumbnail artist and have kind of pivoted my career towards that. And so yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a whole new venture, and I'm really grateful for it. Cool beans. Well, if anybody else has any other questions, let me know. I am gonna just chill here for another couple more minutes. Um, I'll- you know, I think it's great. I think it's a great camera. Um, I'm using it to take pictures of my kids and stuff. That's kind of like the main use case, and then I could see myself taking this out, with friends, and especially with this little lens, but only if we're outside. If you're going to Disneyland or going to a park, going for a walk, going for a hike in the sun, in the outdoor, in outdoors, you can get away with this lens. But I mean, even Disneyland wouldn't be great because as soon as you're standing in a line and you're going indoors, you're taking pictures in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, F8 is just not gonna look good. It's gonna be so noisy and grainy. I wish they would actually Tristan, you were talking about, like, a more pro photo version of this. That would be nice, but I hope that they make a Micro Four Thirds version of it. I might be one of the few people that that would say that. But just do the same thing they did with the G9 II. Just take the G9 II sensor and put that in this body. You don't have to do anything else. Use the same body, because that's what the G9 II is, the same S5 II body. It's just Micro Four Thirds sensor. Do the same thing with this, and then you can get all those tiny little Micro Four Thirds lenses. Then now it truly is the right size. It's a small little compact camera. Then you can use tiny little Micro Four Thirds lenses. But I think this is just a sign of the times. It's a full frame world that we're living in at the moment, and I think people want full frame, and you can use vintage glass on this really, really well, and you can get small vintage glass. But again, there's no EVF, and just a little screen, and it only gets so bright. So when you're outdoors and you're trying to focus manually, it's a bit of a challenge, in my opinion. So I would rather use a Leica M for manual focus, because the way that rangefinders work with that focusing patch is in my opinion, a really useful and, in my opinion, a good way to focus manually. So I think the live stream is just like when people are scrolling on YouTube, they see the video, I believe. So they probably like, okay, cool. I updated the thumbnail and it's much cleaner now. Interesting. The views are not great on my friends' videos. So it's interesting to see that. So I don't think I'm going to be in a rush to make a video on this anytime soon. So cool. Well, if anybody else has any like last questions, this is kind of like last call. I've done this stream for about 2 hours now. So I'm just going to call it, let this thing live on its own. People can watch it, enjoy it later. Um, welcome to the Gear Guy channel. I am the Gear Guy. That comes from a music video that I made a long time ago where it was like a spoof of Bad Guy from Billie Eilish, and it's just I changed it to Gear Guy. You can watch that on my channel on the homepage. If you just go to my channel, you can see that. Tristan, great live stream. Excited to use the S9. Tristan, I feel like now that I follow you on Instagram and see your work, I feel like you are gonna probably really like this camera. As long as you're just aware of those limitations and you're okay with those limitations, I think it's a fun, compact, colorful little thing. The images are amazing. You know, the photo quality, the video quality is incredible. It's S5 II quality. Just you don't have a mechanical shutter, you don't have an EVF. It's not weather sealed. It's a little plasticky. But those aren't necessarily deal breakers. And those certainly aren't things that a lot of like normal people think about, which I think is what this is geared for. One thing that normal people definitely think about and would have problem with is this pancake lens, which to me is just a really weird choice. I don't know why they didn't have the compact 18 to 40 zoom available. But even that too, like it's a little slow. And so I think a lot of beginners are going to be maybe a little confused why their images are really noisy and stuff like that. But that type of thing has always existed in the kit lens world. Kit lenses are often very slow, and it's been like that for a long time. And people seem to be okay with it and not even notice or know what's going on. And once they do research, they realize, oh, I need a fast aperture prime, you know. And then if you were to pick up a, you know, I would recommend the 24 1.8 is really good if you're trying to get a better version of this. If you're like a vlogger, YouTuber, that's a good focal range for filming yourself. I personally keep the 35 1.8 on my camera all the time, which is what I'm using right now on this webcam. I have an S5 IIX sitting in front of me right now. Let me actually show that to you by by flipping it around. Eh, I guess you can't really see because it's focusing on what am I doing? I'm so stupid. Yeah, so S5 IIX with a 35 millimeter 1.8 on this is a good combo. It's a little heavy, which is where I think the really compact Sigma option comes into play at the moment. I do think that Lumix is going to make more compact lenses. Sigma 45 millimeter. I think you know they've at least announced the little zoom that they're working on. So yeah, this lens here, I personally may be picking up myself. This little tiny 45. It's really small. 45 millimeter f2.8. It's probably as big as two of these. You know, it might be about that big, which is about half the size of this, you know, or maybe more than half the size. Because when you put one of these lenses on, any of these 1.8 lenses, Even though they are compact, they are small, they are light as well. They're pretty light lenses. They're just a little big on this body, and it is just kind of front heavy, and it just doesn't feel right. It's like, it's not right. Works, images are great. You know, like I said earlier in the live stream, you can hold it by the lens here and walk around with it like this. And then if you add the grip from Small Rig that they made, it certainly adds a nice grip, and it adds a bit of weight as well because it's metal. So it sort of starts to balance it out a little bit. I personally don't like using the grip. I like it without it. It's cleaner, it looks better. It's significantly lighter. It just feels like just a tiny little camera. So um this lens, you know, any of these 1.8 lenses, and again, particularly for me, I like the 35 1.8. It's the best kind of all-arounder for me. Um it still just feels a little clunky and big to carry around with you like every day all the time. You know, I'm a weirdo. I in the past have been walking around with this camera, going to the zoo, going to the park with my kids, you know, running around in the front yard with the kids with the sprinklers, you know, going for a walk with the family and literally taking this with me. I'm okay with that. Like, I'm a weirdo. I'm a photographer. I'm a enthusiast, right? It's like it doesn't bother me. Like, I was actually talking to my dad. He was like, I want one of these. These are so small and compact. I was like, you have an A7S, you have an A7 IV. My dad is a filmmaker. It's like, you should use those. He's like, they're just too big. I'm like, so you can still great like just take them with you. They're great. They're not that big. They're really not that big. But this really is significantly smaller. It feels lighter. It feels smaller. But the lenses are too big. So it's like, God, they need to make smaller lenses. So, and they have one. I have one here, and it's this weird, dumb lens. So, but hey, it's fun. It's kind of entertaining. It's fun to kind of complain about it and talk about it. That 18 to 40 is going to be cool. Really excited for that to drop. Wouldn't mind using that on my S5 too if it's really compact. Wish it was ready to launch with the S9. I agree. I would imagine that at some point it'll be available as a kit with the S9. I was walking around with the 20 to 60, which was a kit lens with the S5 um, on this, and that's really versatile. That's a good lens. It's a pretty good kit lens. I think it's 3.5 to 4 or 3.5 to 5.6, I believe, when you zoom in. Nice range. You know, 20 millimeters is wider than most zooms. Most zooms in that range on the wide end are 24 millimeters. So having 20 is great. And then it's also a little bit, you know, it's not 70 millimeters, I guess, on the tight end. I guess a lot of them are 24 to 70, but 60 is nice. To go 20 to 60 is nice. But it just makes the whole thing a little bit bigger and a little bit, you know, less fun to carry and stuff like that. Here's a picture of it with the 35. I've got the 35 on the camera that I'm filming on right now, but yeah, that's the 35 on it. It's a little big. It's just a little big. But yeah, it's cool. Oh, I completely forgot to mention the hybrid zoom feature that they are enabling here. Um Benny, throw it on the window. I think you mean throw it out the window is what you meant. No headphone jack, no AVF, sensor not fast enough. Not a Sony fanboy, but I prefer the ZV-E1 over it. I would only prefer it just for the 3:2 aspect ratio. Hey man, I hear you. I agree. There's a lot of weird stuff with this camera. Super strange. Um, and I agree. Like, I think if you're only a filmmaker, if you're only a video person, um, the ZV-E1 is better for sure. The ZV-E1 is better in a lot of ways, but it's a much lower resolution sensor. It's not as fun, which is a dumb thing to say, but this is smaller, more compact, comes in different colors. But they've got these LUTs, which I really like. So if I don't see the ZV-E1 as X100 competitor. This is sort of kind of an X100 competitor, sort of, but it's also sort of a ZV-1 competitor. I would imagine that they're targeting that audience. I will say these little built-in mics are not bad. They actually sound pretty good. I did some tests with it. Doesn't make sense that it would, but it doesn't sound bad at all. And with a little bit of audio cleanup, you really could use that as like a real, you know, mic, and you could put little furry windscreens on that like the old days with like the RX1, what was it? Yeah, the RX100s. You could put like these little Raikkout furry windscreens on top, and just use that as your mic. So yeah, that's interesting to think about. But yeah, anyways, I feel like I was going on another rant. Oh yeah, the hybrid zoom. So they're doing something now, and I think this will come to the S5 IIs as well, where when you're shooting 4K, because it's a 6K sensor, um, they're applying a digital zoom with a mechanical zoom in in collaboration with it. So as you're zooming it, it's literally adding a digital zoom while you're zooming it, and it's really smooth. And so I think like your 20 to 60 millimeter kit zoom turns into like a 20 to 140 millimeter or something like that, or 160 millimeter. It's really cool. And I was using it to take pictures with this. And as I was zooming, it was doing essentially a digital crop, but it just feels like you have that range. Like if you don't think about it and you're taking JPEGs, which I was doing, I'm just taking pictures of the kids and stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like the image looks great. It's, it is cropping in on the sensor, but it's cool that it's kind of all built in there. It's a cool feature to have this like it's doing something kind of similar to clear image zoom that Sony does. But it's like synced to your lenses. So any of those Lumix zoom lenses, it does this kind of hybrid zoom thing while you're zooming it. So like a 70 to 200 is going to like turn into like a 70 to 300, which is kind of cool. Again, it's not real. It's not really an actual real zoom, but it feels like it, and it's kind of neat. So that 18 to 40 that's coming out later, that little compact 18 to 40 will end up with that feature being like an 18 to 100, or whatever, something like that. So that's really versatile. That's really neat for both video and photo. If you're shooting 4K, I think if you're shooting 6K, you don't have that because that's why you're able to do that. It's cropping in on a 6K image, giving you still a full 4K mode. Well, I guess, yeah, for video, you're not really losing any resolution. It's just a digital zoom. It's not a physical zoom, but it's kind of cool. Anyways, it's been exactly 2 hours now. Be on the lookout on this channel for future content about this camera, as well as, maybe some other things. I've got some camcorders that I want to play with. I got this really cool Sony camcorder. It's actually right behind me there. This is the AX100. I've really actually enjoyed using that for like filming my kids and stuff. It just has a certain look to it that I really love, that retro camcorder vibe, but it's actually a nice sharp 4K image. So that will, I don't know, I might do some stuff on that, but this channel is really a second channel for me. My main channel moving forward is DVD Altizer. If you just search David Altizer, DVD Altizer is the username. I'll be posting thumbnail content there. So Benny, it is small and compact, but I think they missed the opportunity to compete with X100. Thank you for the live. Always liked your style of reviewing cameras. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I don't disagree with you. I think they did miss it. I think in terms of like really being a true X100 competitor, it's kind of just like this weird blend of a lot of things. It's got all the same video features that Panasonic's known for: shutter angle, waveforms, this camera can shoot 4:3 anamorphic. It can shoot 6K open gate. It's got vlog. It can do 422 10-bit, you know, with the recording limits, obviously, again, which we talked about it earlier in the stream. 15 minutes for most settings, 15-minute record limit for most settings, 10 minutes for 6K open gate. But it's like if they made it a little bit easier to use and gave you, I guess you don't really need an EVF. I keep wanting one. I love the optical viewfinder on the X100, but I think the sad reality is the people who are buying the X100 now are the TikTok influencers, and they don't use the EVF. It just kind of looks nice. It makes the camera look more retro, which is probably why they like it. But the Ryko GRs are very popular, and those don't have a EVF. So I don't think they really even needed an EVF to compete. I think if this had a built-in 35 millimeter f2 lens, but it was full frame, if this was a fixed lens camera, then that would have really been a huge competitor to the Ryko and to the X100. And I would have been probably a little bit more excited about it, to be completely honest, because a small, compact 35 millimeter lens with a f2 aperture on a full frame body, that would be fun. But then you also have people who are going to enjoy this. The fact that it is interchangeable is great. You can put any lens you want on it, anyone at all. Sigma makes a bunch of great lenses. Panasonic has, these great 1.8 aperture lenses. Again, I've talked a lot about the size here. I think they're too big, even though they're kind of not really that big. It's just on this body, it's too big. And then using little old manual Leica lenses, Contax Zeiss lenses on here is going to be fun too. But you don't have all the focus aids that you're used to having with, especially like an EVF. Would love to see better manual focus aids. Focus peaking is on here. Stabilization is great. Anyways, it's a strange camera, but a good one, I think. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is a good camera. It is a fun camera. I personally do like it. Full disclaimer, I was given this camera for free. I understand and acknowledge my privilege. I'm grateful for it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm grateful for it. I've worked really hard on YouTube, but I'm not entitled to this, and I acknowledge that. If I had the money to buy this, would I actually spend $1,500 to buy this camera? Especially over the X100 series. So personally, I'm not a fan of the X100. I never have. I've always wanted to like it, but there's just something with it that I just don't click with. I think it's probably because my brain is so video guy focused, and it's always been a video second, photography first thing. And I think this S9 is the other way around. This is even though they really want you to know that, hey, this shoots great photos, it does. I think it's actually a video first, even with the limitations of the 10-minute record time. I think it's a better video camera than it is a photo camera, especially for the money. So if given the option, would you, gun to my head, X100 6 or Lumix S9 for free, which one do you choose? Probably. Oh man. Actually, when I really think about it, I don't know. Maybe I still would pick the X100 because that small lens, that small autofocus, 23 millimeter f2 lens, and the optical viewfinder and the built-in flash. Gosh, dang it. And the manual controls there up on the top. You can actually dial in your shutter speed and see what it is. You can manually adjust your aperture and see what the setting is there and not have to interface with the screen. And yeah, I think the X106 is a better better designed all-arounder, or any of the X100s, I guess. Hmm. It'll be interesting to see how the market responds to this one. The S5 II was such a big hit. I think Panasonic has high expectations for this, and I don't think they're going to, uh I don't think this is gonna perform as good as they're hoping, but, I mean, look at it, this is more of what it next to my head here, you can really get a sense of scale. It is a very small compact camera, and that is a niche of cameras that needs to exist. There are people that love that. I think with that 18 to 40 zoom, it'll be a wonderful little travel camera, and when that lens comes out, when that 18 to 40 compact, teeny tiny little zoom comes out, I probably will use it more. I'll probably, just keep it around my neck on a little strap, take it to the zoo, take it to the park with the kids, and then that will be my main. And because the built-in mic is pretty good too, like, could use it for video, for like home movies. It's a great little dad cam. You got the LUTs, you can get cool looks with that. And then the app is, as terrible as it is, still an app that works. So you can send photos to your phone, and I could text my family the pictures. I don't use Instagram really. What I mostly do is I'll send photos to my parents and to my in-laws and stuff like that. Um, so being able to send it directly to my phone is great. I still think using a USB-C dongle, like an SD card slot thing, with this camera is probably the fastest way to get images off of this onto this. But anyways, all right, it's been over 2 hours. Thank you guys for being here. This is my Gear Guy channel, and I am super grateful that you're here. Yeah, I used to be called Dave Mays. My real name is David Altizer. Um, Most of my social media now is focused on uh, thumbnails, because that is the path that I have been going on, and it's a career that I've is brand new for me. It's only been a year, but I've really, really enjoyed it, and that is ultimately what I'm doing now. But this channel will still exist. I will still post videos here. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. I think what's fun about this channel, if you're new to this channel, is because every video that I post here is going to be just more of a passion project. This channel, I have no intentions of like making a living off of this channel. Hopefully you can kind of like trust what I have to say, because I kind of don't have anything to lose when it comes to this channel. So I still love gear. I still love talking about it. I'm still very passionate about it. But the gear review content for me has essentially stopped, and I'm transitioning to fully doing, like, to making a full-time living doing thumbnail based content, YouTube thumbnails. And if you're not familiar with my whole career and story with that, follow me on Twitter/X, and you can kind of see what I'm doing over there, because that's really where I'm sharing most of my work, and where you can see kind of like my portfolio and whatnot. Been working with a lot of different YouTubers and creators. In fact, I have a bunch of thumbnails I have to make today. So after this live stream, I'm gonna make some thumbnails, and then work on my actual video review, that I will then post on this channel, the Gear Guy channel. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all your questions. Um, I just want to end with something a little like positive, and let me just share something that I was reading yesterday before we leave, if you don't mind, if you're still here, or you re-listening to this. Um, so I am a Christian, and I take my faith really seriously. I was reading the Bible yesterday. I read Ecclesiastes chapter 6. Chapter 6, verse 2. God gives a person riches, wealth, and honor so that he lacks nothing of all he desires for himself. But God does not allow him to enjoy them. Instead, a stranger will enjoy them. This is futile and a sickening tragedy. A man may father 100 children and live many years. No matter how long he lives, if he is not satisfied by good things and does not even have a proper burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. So, what does this mean? So, the first half is talking about how God gives some people riches, wealth, and honor, and he lacks nothing of all he desires. But if he doesn't have a relationship with God, he has no purpose and he will not enjoy them. Um, and then in the culture that this was written in Ecclesiastes, this is a Jewish culture, a couple thousand years ago. Um, having a long lineage and having a bunch of people, having a bunch of kids, and living a long life was kind of how you were seen as like a valuable person if you had a bunch of children. So chapter 6, verse 3 of Ecclesiastes says, "A man may father 100 children and live many years, no matter how long he lives. If he is not satisfied by good things, it does not even have a proper burial. I say a stillborn child is better off than he." So basically, that's saying, like, even if from a worldly standpoint, you were really well off with all these kids and you lived a long, healthy life, if you didn't have a relationship with God, if you didn't have that peace and joy that you're given through a relationship with Him, it's better for an unborn child, because an unborn child or a stillborn child never came into this world and never experienced the sin and was basically just, you know, went straight to be with God. And so I just say that to say, ultimately, I've got all these cameras. I'm very blessed, extremely blessed to have them. But and I'm sure a lot of you guys too have certain cameras, whether even if it's just all the way down to your iPhone or older cameras that you bought used. I mean, I bought this camera for $400 and I've been using it as like my primary camera. I really like it a lot. I've been using it for all the like home video with my kids. I love the camcorder look. You don't have to buy new cameras. But even if you had all the best cameras in the world and you were being sent to Japan and you were getting all these cameras without the peace from God and without focusing on Him, you're just never going to be satisfied. And over the last year, I've completely surrendered my life to God and He told me to essentially delete my channel and give it to Connor, which is what I did. So he has my channel now, the original Kinotika channel. And God has just really given me a lot of peace, a lot of blessings, and just given me focus and clarity out of the obedience of what He was asking. And so, anyways, I'm just saying that because it's like we're talking about a camera, we're talking about a lot of material possessions. This is just a dumb piece of plastic with uh, some metal on it, and it's gonna break. And in 100 years, it'll be disintegrated and it'll be in the trash. In 5 years, it's going to be outdated and uninteresting. You could probably buy one of these for $500 in a couple of years on eBay. It's not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you fulfilled. If you've never considered looking into anything spiritually and you don't think that God exists, I would encourage you to ask for Him to reveal Himself to you. Just simply say, "God, if you're real, will you reveal yourself to me?" And honestly, truly seek Him. And then honestly, truly check out the Bible, read John. It's in the New Testament if you haven't read it. Just check it out. It's worth a shot. If it's true, it's the most life-changing truth in existence. Because what I believe is that God is real and that He made everything. He made you, He made your brain, He made your children, He made the earth, He made the grass, the animals, and the entire universe. When you look up at the moon, when the eclipse happened, and isn't it amazing how the moon is the exact same size as the sun from our perspective, and that it just happens to fit perfectly? What are the odds of that? I mean, think about all the other moons on other planets. What are the odds that the one moon that we have happens to line up perfectly by the exact perfect amount? I saw a bunch of scientists talking about that when the eclipse happened. It's like, oh, it's one of the most, amazing coincidences. Like, it's not a coincidence. It's a example of God's perfection and his majesty and his unbelievable power and creativity. The complexity of our brain and the DNA is just unbelievable. We still don't understand it. We don't even understand how life happens. We can make babies by having an embryo and a sperm and like in a petri dish, can put them together and have the artificial insemination. But like, why this plus this equals life and then boom, it happens? That is not something that we really understand. It's a miracle. Anyways, I believe God is real. And the reason that I believe the Christian Bible is true and why Jesus really was a real person that was on this. Well, first off, Jesus was a real person. If you just look at history and you see, like, okay, was he actually a real person? By all accounts and measures, he absolutely was a real person that walked to the earth. Okay, so that means you have to decide if what he said was true or if it was a lie. So if he was lying, then fine, you can just ignore it. But if he was telling the truth, he claimed to be the Son of God. Not only that, but he claimed to be God himself. God came to earth to be a human. I mean, like, really think about that. If you grew up in America or in a Western society, these stories you might have heard a lot. Like, really consider that. Okay. If God is real and he made everything, and then he came down to earth to be a human, like an actual man, and he walked among us and he shared the truth of the gospel, which is, unfortunately, because of our free will, we chose sin. We chose to, which is the opposite of what is good. That's what we do all the time. And because of that, you can't be in God's presence in eternity, which is what he wants. He wants to be with you. You're his son and daughter. We got a lot of guys here. So I'll just, 95% of my audience is male. So I'll just say son. But those of you who are female, daughter. Because God is so perfect in all things, he cannot exist around darkness. Darkness can't exist with light. So because of our choices as humans, we chose darkness. We chose to go against what God said. But because of Jesus, because God sent his son, because he became flesh, died on the cross, because the blood sacrifice and all of the wrath of God of the conviction of, or not the conviction, but the wrath that God has for us and our sin was placed on his son. This is just the system that God designed. If we accept that salvation that we're given through Christ, we're able to be with him in eternity. And when you accept that, when you're baptized in the Holy Spirit, it says that you become a new person. So I'm not a dirty, rotten sinner anymore. I still sin all the time. I'm a human. I make a lot of mistakes. I make mistakes constantly. But we are called to live a righteous life, and be a good person in quotes. But it's not out of like a bunch of rules or whatever. It's just like, I love my relationship with God because I literally talk to him. He talks back to me. He gives me direction. He gives me opportunities. He has gifted me with a beautiful family. But then also a lot of bad things can happen and will happen to me. I might get sick, might lose a bunch of money for some reason, or like I might die in a car accident. One of my kids might get really hurt one day, or who knows what could happen. That's just unfortunately the world we live in. I can't tell you why certain things happen, but I think that's a bit of a consequence of the world that we live in, which is full of sin and we don't have control over that. But what I do have is peace and joy, and that is only given through my relationship with God. So, anyways, if you've never seeked or looked into this, if it was true, it'd be the most important thing that you've ever looked into, because your life is only going to be 80 to 100 years. A lot of us are in our 20s or 30s that are watching this. So that means you only have 50 years left, you know, statistically. You're not necessarily halfway yet, but you're kind of sort of halfway. It's like you only have another 50, 60 years and then you're dead. So it's like That is the one certainty that we have, that we know. It's like all of us are going to die. So anyways, please consider looking into the Bible, the gospel, because if it's true, that means that in eternity, we can be together and hang out and talk about all sorts of cool cameras. And only in heaven will there be perfect cameras. Bible actually talks about heaven will be on earth. There will be a new earth that'll be made. So honestly, a lot of people think we're gonna like live up in the clouds and stuff. What I see in scripture is that God will make a new heaven and a new earth. So we're kind of already we're already in like where we're gonna be in a way. It's just gonna be perfect. There'll be no sin, there'll be no death, no sickness. So it'll be cool to like explore the earth, the new earth with each other and with God. And I don't know what that's gonna look like. Anyways, thanks for being here. Love you guys.